Remember at the end of week 1 when we joined the New York Times COVID data with the US counties? We're going to do that again, but this time we're going to use Mapshaper, and I'm going to show you how Mapshaper can make it actually a lot easier. Once again, we're going to need to make sure to join on the county FIPS code, that 5-digit code. And so we're going to need to find those join keys, both in the shapefile and in the data file. So first we need to inspect our shapes and our data to find that common value. And in our case, we're going to look for that 5-digit county identifier that we used way back in week 1. So let's start by looking and inspecting our shape files and our data files. Now, shape files, SHP, and this little collection of county shape files here, they're notoriously hard to sort of look at and inspect. But we remember we made that GeoJSON file. That's a lot easier. So I'm going to click on here, and there's my GeoJSON file. And if you don't see the file you're looking for here, you can type refresh in the terminal, and that should help. Or if it's not there, if it's not appearing there, don't worry. You can just watch along. So what I'm going to do here first, I can just click on that and I can see the GeoJSON file. A fun trick you can do in Glitch. GeoJSON files are just JSON files. So if I rename this to say JSON, Glitch will recognize it as a JSON file and then allow you to format it, and it makes nice colors, and you can click on this prettier button, and the prettier button after a few seconds will make it look nice and pretty. It's just a little bit easier to read as a human. And so you can see each of the features, and each feature is actually one of these counties. You can see here the coordinates for drawing that feature, and then here are the properties. And in fact, it turns out that this line, this GeoID, is this 5-digit county identifier. And that's the one we want to use for the shapes. So GeoID, we want to remember GeoID is the thing that we want, right? This one right there. Okay. So GeoID is what we want from the shapefiles. And then we have the New York Times data. I've loaded it in here for you as covid-counties.csv. And if you click on that, you can see the CSV file of all of the counties and their values. And remember, the field names are at the top. And so we made this plain GeoID as the last column, and you can see these last numbers are the 5-digit numbers that we want. And so, yeah, that's it. That's what, for this data file, the key here is plain GeoID. So we have capital GeoID for the shapes and plain underscore GeoID for the data in the CSV. And those two things are important. We're going to need them in just a second. So let's go back to our make file. Here it is. And let's make a new make command, and we're going to call it COVID map. And we'll start, as we always do, with a caret and Mapshaper, which is the command. And then the input, we want the counties.shape. So input is -i, and we want data/counties.shp, and we're going to end it with a space and a backslash. Remember, this is this shape file here. We could also use the public counties.json. That would work too. I'm just using the original shape file. Either one will work. Okay, and then here is the kind of amazing command, the join command. This is a Mapshaper command, and we just type -join. And we're going to join to the shapefile the CSV, and that's here at data covid-counties.csv. So let's do that. Data covid-counties CSV. Okay. We're going to join the CSV file, but we have to then add a couple of other things. One thing that's super important is this option called string fields. Remember, even though we have that 5-digit number that is the county identifier, it's not really a value, right? It's not something you want to add and subtract. It's more like a postal code in that it's just a set of characters. And that's important because some of them begin with 0. And so if it's 0, 7, 1, 2, 3, you don't want that to turn out to be 7,123, right? You want it 0, 7, 1, 2, 3. So we have to tell Mapshaper that that field is a string. It's like a word. It's not a number. So string fields, I can say that plain GOID. That's our string field. And I'm going to actually hide our little happy map here. I can do that just to get some more space. I'm going to close the preview. I can open it later, but I'm going to close that preview right there. So we have some more space to type, and you can see what I'm typing. All right. Now here's the key moment is that we want, literally it's the key moment, it's the keys moment. We want to say what keys we're going to use. And remember, that we had the GOID, capital GOID for the shapes, and then the data was plain underscore GOID in lowercase. So the keys, and this isn't incredibly clear in the documentation, but you always basically want to say the shapefiles key and then the data key. So the shapefile key, remember, was GOID and the CSV key. So I'm putting a comma, and that was plain, whoops, and that was plain underscore GOID. Okay, so if we leave that just like this and we run the make file, we do that by saying make COVID map, right? And that's just going to say make this command, right? So make COVID map, and I hit enter, and it runs this command, and it's joining the data to the shapes. And I just want to talk a little bit about the warnings that I'm getting here. So it first says, look, I found number fields in all of these different fields, which is right. Those are actually all numbers. Notice it didn't call plain GOID a number field because we told it not to. We told it it was a word, a string. So the next warning is that it joined data from 3,210 source records to 3,210 target records. So that's the number of connections it made. It found matches in both of the data sets, the shape and the data, and matched 3,210, which is pretty good. It's not all of them. In fact, 11 of the shapes didn't get any data. Okay, that could be an issue. We want to make sure we know what's going on there. It also said that 47 of the 3,257 source records, this is the data, the CSV, could not be joined. So we have data that have no shapes. And I will tell you that if you actually run, there's a way to find out what's going on here. And I've actually made down here a command for you. It's make data check. And if you do make data check and this uses some extra commands and writes out a couple of more files, it actually spits out what's missing here. But if for the purpose of brevity, you can do that on your own if you'd like and look at those files. But what I'll just tell you is what's missing here, these 11 target records, these are remember New York City is handled differently. So 5 of these are the 5 boroughs of New York City that it couldn't find. There's also some mismatches with the regions in Alaska. So I've looked at this, that's what that's about. We're gonna skip over it right now, but that's something you would want to solve. And this 47 turns out to be data that we have for other places that we don't have shapes for. And so that includes Puerto Rico and all the counties in Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, the Northern Mariana Islands, and some Alaska. Again, some Alaska regions. Also, the New York Times data has fields for unknown. So if there's a state with an unknown county where that data goes. So that's what that's all about. And you would want to make sure you understood what was going on there before you proceeded. Okay. So now we have this joined and we're comfortable. Let's say we're just comfortable with the warnings that we're getting. And remember, the field that we want actually is this one right here, this cases average per 100K. That's the thing that we really wanted to map, right? The average rate of cases in every county. And so to visualize that, I'm going to add yet another command to our COVID map command. I'm going to first go to the end of this line and add a space and a backslash so I don't forget to continue that command. All right, so we have a new line and we'll do a little caret. And now we're going to use the classify command. And classify takes a field and turns it into colors. So let's do that. The field that we want to classify is this cases average per 100K. I can actually just copy and paste that, or you can type it just like that. Okay. And then I want to turn it into 5 colors this time. So I'm going to say classes equal 5. That's how many classes it will divide it into. And I want to paint it with a set of colors. And the way you do that is you say colors equals, and then a code for the colors. So I'm going to use this one ORRD. And that means an orange-red scale. To get the colors and to see what Mapshaper can do, I'm back down at the command line. I can say Mapshaper-colors, and it'll just tell me, it'll just list for me all of the colors that are possible. We have categorical, that's if you have very different things in categories, you want these sets. We have sequential, which is what we're doing, right, from low to high. That's a sequence, and I'm using this orange red one here. And there's diverging, so if you have like warmer and colder, you can use that, just like we did before. And then we have this multi-hue. Now, this is not so easy to see or imagine in text, so there's actually a good way. If you go to bit.ly/mapping-colors, you can actually see them here. These are the same colors that Mapshaper uses. These are D3 colors. You can see we're using this ORRD one, so it's going to go from sort of yellow to red, and then we have diverging ones down here. You could imagine warmer and colder, or political differences, etc. Okay. But those are the color codes, so we're just going to use color codes there. And then finally, I need to tell Mapshaper how I want it to classify things. Remember, we could use quantiles, we could use equal intervals. There's a one that works very nicely. You can look at the documentation to see how it's calculated, but it's called nice. So I'm going to use nice. And we'll use that and put a slash at the end. And hit enter. So then finally, just sort of housekeeping, I want to project it in that nice projection, which is Albers USA. Albers USA. There we go. And we have to output it, right? So we want to say -O, and we're going to say public, because I want to be able to see it publicly, and I'm going to call it covidmap.svg. Okay, so let's run this command, which is make COVID map, right? Because that's this here, make COVID map, and hit enter, and just see what happens first. Okay, so we get a lot of information, which is very cool. So some of the stuff we've seen before, it tells us about what the joins did and didn't do. Good. Classify is telling us, oh, here are the 5 colors that I decided to use. These are super useful because you can use this for your color key. It made nice breaks at 4, 11, 18, and 25. Remember, this is cases per 100,000. It even tells you how it broke them down. So 0 to 3.99. This is how many there are. And so you can see that there were 11. Remember 11 that were null and that didn't match. That's those 11 that we know about. And then it wrote it out to covidmap.svg. If we go down to the bottom of the screen here and bring back our preview pane, I can go into here, and instead of counties.svg, I'm going to change that to covidmap.svg. And look at that. There is our COVID map. Next time, we'll look at how you can inject new data, the most recent COVID case data, into this same map.